Welcome to the Peopleverse podcast. I'm Evan Troxel, and I recently had the pleasure of recording several conversations in the Tect booth at the American Institute of Architects National Conference on Architecture in Chicago with individuals from all different parts of the building industry. It was fantastic to have the expo hall activity as the backdrop for this episode, and you'll see and hear the energy whether you're watching it on YouTube or listening to the audio version of the podcast. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Here's Bob Habian, the president of Tect, and me to kick it off. We had some amazing conversations on the show floor at AIA, the National Conference on Architecture in Chicago, and literally hundreds of conversations. I mean, that's one of the benefits of having a booth is they come to you. You don't have to go out and do all that. And I don't think any of them were like this one with Mike Kunard of Hidden Step Marketing. What in the conversation that I had with him stood out to you?
I would say that Mike represents a significant sector of the building industry supply side, and that is those non-global mainstream brands that we all know. Think about it. If you're not a global mainstream brand that already has, brand recognition, how do you get that? And to be in this industry, to provide even one product legitimately to the building industry, it takes, millions and sometimes decades to be properly positioned. And that's just to be viable to supply. How then do you become known? And so what I liked about Mike's kind of conversation and what he shared was the level of hand-holding that's needed to work with a manufacturer and to really understand the value proposition, how they fit in the world. And from a user side, what I know is that we don't only want those big international brands. We want to know about the up-and-comers, but where do we go to find them, particularly if they're just building market share? By definition, they're harder to find all the more. And so he's doing something important, but I think the outcome of his work and his clients enables architects and others to do things that we couldn't do without those innovations. And that bridge is pretty powerful.
I talk to architects all the time, and this comes up in the interview, but just for the sake of kind of introducing some of the themes of the conversation, who find themselves in one of two places all the time, which is I'm going to just keep reusing what I know. Maybe it is those big brands that I've used for decades in my firm or for at least years in my firm, and I know it and I trust it, and I already did all that research and I figured it out, and therefore I don't need to do it again. But to your point, how do I find the innovative stuff? Because some of these smaller brands are coming to market because of the level of innovation that they bring, because they can compete, because they are differentiated from those other brands. And as an architect, how do I find them? How do I find that information and connect them? And that to me is the Lord's work that Mike's doing there, because that is truly that there's an art to that science. And getting people connected, obviously, there's a strong alignment with what we're doing at Tect in that regard as well, which is how do people find the right people on between these two different sides of, the gap that we keep talking about here, the gap between supply and demand in the building industry.
Yeah. The other thing about some of his clients is they may be small relative to other mainstream manufacturers in the U.S., but some of these companies are globally successful in other markets. Okay, so we're seeing an increase in the influx of supply side to the U.S., and it's not just based on mass market economics. So there's some very high engineering products coming out of Europe that, frankly, are better products. And so just because they're new to our market doesn't mean they're unproven. And so Mike is involved with some pretty attractive options. One that comes to mind that he speaks to from Italy, that's a glass product that has some great capabilities that you just don't find otherwise. So I think the interview with Mike is awesome. It signals a very interesting change in access to better things that we're participating in, and that we're partnering with people like Mike and his clients to make this easier to access. So I encourage everyone to take a close listen to this interview, and I think you're going to enjoy it.
In this episode, I welcome Mike Kunard, National Sales Manager and owner at Hidden Step Marketing.
Maybe first you could just give kind of a little short background of and why you do what you do. I mean, I think we're all here for bigger reasons than are just apparent on the surface. So just give a little bit of the history of where you're coming from.
Throughout my 20 plus years career, I've been in the building materials industry a lot on the manufacturing side, and the products have been cool and all of that, but really what has kept me in the industry is seeing all of these different businesses run. I mean, mom and pop lumber yards, family framing crews, meeting design professionals, falling in love with architecture, and I don't have the critical skills of architecture, but being able to recognize, different things. And so it's being a part of all of those relationships and solving problems, finding solutions, some which are driven from factors in our industry, right? With lower participation levels in different trades, right? So we need something that installs faster because we don't have as many or we have different standards in codes and performance values, so we need to come up with something. So I've been on the manufacturing side, but it's the relationship and diversity of types of businesses. So today I'm running a company that's helping a little bit of all of that. So working with manufacturers that need architectural design engineer professionals, but are just starting, and they're family businesses for the most part. Small private entities with scalable opportunities and great manufacturing capability of their own right, but they don't necessarily know how to bring it to scale market. And I've been fortunate enough to have some experiences with that, where there's opportunities to make those connections.
And these are serious businesses. I mean, that's a silly way to say it, but it takes a lot of capital to get into becoming a building product manufacturer, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
They've taken on so much to even get to the point, and then it's so hard to get found, right?
Yes, exactly, exactly. I mean, it's when you go, there are, several tenets in people in my circles, if you will, of experience that we talk about. It's make a better product. It's tell people about it, but it's make it easy to buy. And that piece of it, has 1,000 different strings tied to it.
Sure.
But you could have, a fantastic product. You were exhibiting at A22 and somebody loves it, but if they're in Portland, Oregon,
right,
and they don't have access to the product, and it's only based in Atlanta right now, you're going to lose that project.
And they wouldn't even know.
No.
Like a design professional doesn't know all the logistics and the regions and the footprints and all this, the constraints that you're talking about that are kind of tied up in that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I have people that want products that I work with today, and I have to say no.
Yeah.
Yet they found out that it's a better application, for their situation. It's just difficult to get it moved there.
One of the things that I talk to a lot of architects and interior designers who work at larger firms, and obviously there's kind of a basis of design specification that they carry kind of consistently, right? And they do that so that they've already spent the time to figure things out, right? And so they're saving time by reusing that information that's already been prepared in the right way. The spec is correct. They've used it they know it performs. But then they also say, but man, we know there's stuff out there that we just don't know anything about, right? And so being a smaller company that probably does have innovative products, can you just walk us through how they're trying to bridge the gap with the design professional, and to kind of just illustrate what that struggle is like? Because they want to be found, architects want to find them, and this kind of defines the gap that we're talking about. But if an architect doesn't know that this company even exists, or that these products will solve their problems, this is a communication problem.
It is.
But it goes deep.
Yeah, it is. It's really difficult because and I've worked for some of these legacy 150-year-old companies, that particularly early in my career.
Yeah.
And even though we felt like we were the #1 brand, we would run into specifications from a competitor that just did better in that community.
Yeah.
Right. Our focus had been more on commercial contractors versus interior design professionals. And so we had to up our game, and at the end of the day, it comes down to understanding, what you do well as the manufacturer, and then presenting it in such a fashion where we are asking, can we help you solve a problem, right? And that's make a better product. When I was talking about kind of the 3 tenets, if you will, of manufacturing, and it's not just tell them that you've made a better product, right? But it's seeking out, what challenges do you have in this type of an application? And sometimes you have to, kind of you preface it a little bit of, is there a desire for a glass railing system that you specify without any top rail on top of it? Well, guess what? I might have a glass rail system without that top rail, right?
Yeah. But you wouldn't know that without this conversation happening.
No, and that's what it boils down to.
Right.
So the real difficulty is, how does a father-son or a husband-wife that has gone, spent their life savings in 5 years from Australia, right? This is a live case.
I can tell.
I can
tell this is a real,
they're
real
$500,000 deep into this thing, and now they have a worldwide patent, but they live on the other side of the world, and how do they connect to design professionals that might want this illuminated frameless glass railing system that you can't find anywhere else, but they don't know they should be looking for it?
And the traditional route to kind of exposing design professionals, it's obviously there's a website, but there's lunch and learns, there's usually an opportunity in some kind of continuing education just to get people aware, but that usually has no basis in the actual project right now, right?
Correct.
That's like throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping that they'll remember you if and when the time arises.
And even if there's a live project, the live project in the architectural community means 6 to 12 months.
Right. Yeah.
Is typically right. What we're looking at from a manufacturer's perspective is really 12-month. Is when you're looking to convert an opportunity. To actually get something coming out of the ground.
So are there innovative ways that you guys you're trying to coach them to bridge the communication gap?
Yeah, and it's a prioritization of having to do a little bit of several things to get there, right? First of all, you have to have in order to get that lunch and learn, more times than not, you need to have the continued education. So then you need a accredited platform, an accredited program. And it's the investment to get that done and the resources to put it forth.
And most manufacturers are not in the education business. Like, they kind of are by default, but at the same time, they're not educators. And so it's a little bit outside their wheelhouse.
It is. So it's finding opportunities, and I guess the way I have seen us achieve the best success is really just going in and concentrated. So you're finding that one, or you're finding where your cladding or your product has a high potential to go into that market, or to be used in a certain market. So glass railing, is it Miami-Dade certified, or is it a roofing product, shingle product that has performed at a high level, will go to that market that demands that, and then start the communication. The scalability is the challenge. So there's different. Every market will have benchmarks. Sometimes it's commercial, sometimes it's residential, that is so branded in a specific community that they can help bridge that gap. But it's knocking on a door. It really is.
One of the things you were talking about before we hit record was kind of understanding where the design professionals' pain points are when they come up against a manufacturer that's asking for all their information. And I think you presented it even at another level than I've experienced it myself, but maybe let's go through that story again now that we're recording, because I think it's important for the design community to understand that you understand them, and kind of the battle you're trying to fight behind the scenes to make it right so that people can buy their product.
When you've made a better product, and when your trying to scale and with a limited resource as a manufacturer, because you've invested everything to get into this,
Yep.
to get to this first point,
Yep.
right? A lot of the natural brain from those who have put all of their sweat and money into is that we have to get an ROI.
Yeah.
So, okay, I've built a really nice system here, and I want people to look at it, but I need to capture everyone who looks at it.
I want something in return.
Exactly.
That kind of
So-
gives me some kind of a sense that maybe something, but I got a name. Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
right. So, I have 18 different documents to download, but I have to put in personal information every time, and I'm a bridge to the market, from being on job sites with hard hats, on hands and knees, sometimes fixing, doing installation practice. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
We have to make our information, particularly in today's technological century,
right?
Is that
Digital
you need
first.
to make it first, and you need to
Right.
make it available for free,
Right.
because it will come back. You have to make it easy, and that goes back to my make it easy to buy. Well, make it easy to specify. Make
Right.
it easy to
Well, yeah,
acquire the
because
information.
The design professional doesn't buy, but
Right.
they do specify, they do select, they do curate.
Yes.
And all of those things eventually hopefully lead to that sale.
Yep.
But if you make it hard to even do that first part, the end part will never happen.
Right, and getting to that point on the website of download, right? You've already got your ROI,
Yeah.
because you found a customer found you.
They found you.
Right?
Yeah.
You put the money into the website. You
Right.
hit some SEO, right? Those things. But
Right.
so yeah, it's not all is lost.
Yeah.
Right? There are bridges out there, and there's more of me's out there.
Yeah.
That does understand, to at least to a level, the needs of design professionals.
Yeah.
But also, that there's a willingness to learn more, and I think that's what's exciting about meeting with Bob last winter. We first started having some conversations, and it's an exciting bridge.
Well, we're at A22, right? And the AIA, the National Conference on Architecture.
Yeah.
I mean, this show is designed to bring people together, but I think it's more of a strategy to back up the findings that they have in this report that they've done for the last 5 or 6 years called Architect's Journey to Specification, where they really spell out, and the audience is building product manufacturers. One of the stats that they have in this report is that 2 out of 3 architects walk away from a website, click somewhere else when they're met with that
Enter the
form
information.
that they put up. That's a huge number. Like, seriously?
Yeah.
66% of architects, and so just
That's 66% failure.
exactly. That's
what it
an
is.
F, right?
Right. Yep.
And so
exactly.
and they're putting this data out there. Like, they've done the surveys, they've done the research, the deep research. They've talked to so many design professionals of all different ages and generations and things to understand, to give that data to the product manufacturers so that they can understand their audience better.
Yeah.
And so I think, just to your point of, like, it doesn't make sense to try to capture that information. Like, it's not only that it just doesn't feel right,
Yeah.
the data actually shows that they're just going somewhere else immediately.
Yeah.
And so just to back that up, like, that's a big deal.
It is, and I think there's work to be done with manufacturers on a whole, that that I come in contact with, where as a whole we need to understand and listen to that data, right? Because there's a lot of, the world is building material manufacturers is just inundated with data, right?
Sure.
We're taking metrics on absolutely everything, and,
Right.
and it's been a heck of a roller coaster the last 15 years, in particular, and so that data becomes more valuable, but it's the less tangible, the deeper in the pipeline, right? Is, I think, sometimes where it doesn't get looked at as closely.
Yeah.
And so I think as a whole we need to do a better job. of listening to
Everybody's
that, and
drowning
it's
in
there.
it.
Yeah.
And the key is getting it consistent enough so that you can pull insight out of it, right? Because raw data is worthless,
Right.
unless you can get it to the point where you can actually pull those kinds of insights out.
Correct.
So that's where I think the AIA is doing the hard work, and
Yeah.
they're pulling the insights out of all this stuff to just say, hey, look, like, you can serve this whole audience of 94,000 members that we have way better if you change these things.
Yeah, these 3 things.
And I think the hard
is the other
thing
component.
that we see from Tect's point of view is if you have to change 3 things and they have to change 3 things, like all 400 manufacturers who are here have to change 3 things, they will all do it differently.
Yes.
And that, to us, is where the opportunity is to work on the profession, the industry that we have, and bring that consistency to it. Because otherwise, again, like, we might just be in a very similar problem, but we've just evolved all at the same time.
Yeah.
But it didn't really actually help anything. And so that's why the AIA invited us here. And like this, we can start to see how these puzzle pieces that are all incredibly important do fit together, right?
They do.
And we're not leaving anybody out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's we have to work together,
Yeah.
right? And with the technology, with innovations, also with consolidation is a big factor.
What
right?
do you mean by that?
Consolidation of manufacturers, I mean, it's happening in every single industry that we look at, right? I don't care if it's healthcare, I don't care if it's finance, I don't care if it's building material manufacturers or building material distributors. And the challenge in supply chain with a near monopolized opportunity is that a manufacturer will partner with a big distributor and say, well, you can't have any competing products.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right? So
and again, the design professional is not going to know a thing about that.
No.
That's going on behind the scenes.
So and that's a difficulty of channel to market. And so, people in building materials have been talking about what's next for for supply chain of new building materials. If there's no wholesale distributors available, well, then how are you going to get to market?
Right.
Right. So, I mean, I talked to many people exhibiting today, and what is your path to market? Right. That's something that I'm concerned with, and I want to be a categorical resource, right, for the community, and understanding what's the trend happening of how are we going to market, and if you're going to do direct to general contractor versus a supply house, then how are you doing that logistically, right? And what opportunities exist there, and what are the hindrances? So it's people see big trucks dropping off loads of materials and think, wow, that must just be easy.
Right.
It's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I've got this amazing phone in my pocket. I have no idea what it took to get here.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like that on purpose for that, right? But
yes.
But there is so much going on beneath the surface. There are so many challenges trying to be addressed. It's really refreshing to hear your perspective, and I feel like, it's cliche. You're one of the good guys. You're fighting for us on the design side to make it easier for us to have higher performing buildings because our clients are demanding it.
Yep.
Because the climate is demanding it. All of these, we have these external pressures. And there are people like you who are working on our behalf in the manufacturing side. Our buildings are made of this stuff, right? And so I think when you think big picture architecture and design, people aren't thinking about products. They're thinking about the big picture, right? But it is important to step back and realize that these buildings are completely made of this stuff. And if we have relationships with experts, category experts, like you were saying, man, you can make my life so much easier to actually get my design intent realized.
Right.
Which is my goal. That's my client's goal. That's why they spent all their money with me, is to get what they want, right? And so this whole kind of like I've said this many times during this show already, but we're kind of neutered to it because we've just been in it for so long that this is the way it is.
Right.
And honestly, like, this kind of change is so necessary. It can make everybody's life better if we do play together on the same team. Get over these kind of old school behavioral things that have happened and say, like, let's start fresh. Let's do it the right way, because now's the opportunity.
We have to keep the element of choice, right? Because think about it. We, a little bit talking about, too much consolidation can, decrease the flow of innovative materials.
Yeah.
You don't want to stop the family business of coming out with an innovative and the creativity and start a small, business.
We need innovation.
If there's not access to market, nobody wants to deny innovation in the architectural community. But if they don't know that's even a consideration or a problem,
they can't survive.
They can't. They can't help it.
Right.
So.
Well, we're up for the challenge. Sounds like you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been wonderful having this conversation with you, and
as well.
Have a great show.
All right, you too, Evan.
Hey, before you go, can you do one thing for me? Hit the like button. It really does help us in the YouTube universe. Watching all the way to the end is probably even more helpful, so thank you for that too. It all adds up and helps more people find the show. These are great ways for you to help spread the word and contribute to the Peopleverse. If you want to help the channel even more, please subscribe and use that red button right down there and turn on the notification bell so that you'll know exactly when the next episode comes out. It's completely free to do so. And finally, do you have something to add to this conversation? If you do, leave a comment. I read all of them. I can't wait to share the next conversation with you. So until then, see you soon.